Boston 2 weeks ago for my 16th year in a row, being at an entrepreneurial conference at MIT. And every time I'm in Boston, I'm struck with the realization of what a terrible student I was. Like many of you, probably, I was very imaginative, kind of the wagging puppy dog. And this was a problem for my parents, because my parents were academics. My dad was a full-ride scholarship student to Notre Dame. He thought he wanted to be a priest until he met my mother, who was also a scholarship student at St. Mary's. And this is what sprung from their loins, and they didn't know what to do. So I'm this crazy kid, and they decided, well, if we can't fix them, maybe the nuns can. So they enrolled me into St. Joseph's School in Homewood, Illinois, and the nuns went to work on me. So for the next couple days, if you like what you hear up here, blame the nuns, and if you don't like what you hear up here, blame the nuns. So I go through St. Joe's School, and then 8th grade, I have my first argument with my father, the debate scholar, that I won. And it sounded something like this. I'm like, Dad, I think I want to go into the arts. I want to be a designer, or I want to be an architect. And you want to send me to Marian Catholic, and they only have 3 courses that I care about. And Homewood Flossmoor has 47 courses. So my father said, all right, Michael, you have won. My dad sounds like Darth Vader. He said, you can go to Homewood Flossmoor on one condition, that you join Teen Encounter. So you can imagine Teen Encounter was a youth group. I thought that was great because there were girls there. And at the time I was very interested in girls. And it was run by a guy named Father Joe Ruiz. And Father Joe Ruiz was a very nice guy. He was a priest that looked kind of like Santa Claus out of uniform. And he talked, he laughed. I remember he laughed like Fozzie Bear from The Muppet Show. It sounded like this, like, ah. And so the first summer before high school, I'm at a retreat, and I was trying to impress young ladies, and I'm running back and forth, all sweaty, and I noticed that Father Joe was in the corner, and he was watching me like a tennis match. And eventually he goes, hey, Mike, come on over here. I want to talk to you. Come on over here. Sit down, Mike. I have something to say to you. And so I'm all sweaty. I sit down. What, Joe? And he goes, no, look at me, Mike. Look at me. I have something to say to you. This is important. Look at me. You know, I've noticed something about you, Mike. I've noticed something. You want to know what I noticed? And I go, what? Joe, what? He goes, no, look at me. Here's what I've noticed. I've noticed you can be a real asshole. Do you know that? And I was absolutely stunned. I'd never heard a priest swear, and that cut me. I mean, at that moment, it stopped. Everything stopped and everything changed, because I knew that Father Joe was right. That I was kind of an intellectual bully, and that I would tease kids, and I was kind of a smarmy jerk. But then he went on to say, but I've noticed something else about you. You have a sense of humor, and you cheer people up. And you're the one that's taking care of the kid with Down syndrome. I mean, you really have something about you that's special. How about you do more of that? And so the reason I start with that story is because I've been going to conferences for many years. And I've noticed that there are moments in time where everything changes. Everything shifts. I like to say that when the soil is thirsty, it will take the water. And when they asked me to come and if I'd be interested in chairing this conference, I thought about my purpose, which is to inspire and empower curiosity. Said differently, I like to show up and make people believe they can change the world, and then give them the tools to do that. Just like Father Joe. He inspired me to change, and then he gave me some tools to do that. So I've been here, we've been here many times. FEI has had an amazing impact on our business and on my life personally. So it's an honor to be here. I'm going to be making connections for you in front of the room between one speaker and another. And I will tell you that I'm not sure how smart I am. I think I'm still that same kid that I used to be. But I've had the honor over 26 years to spend time with people like you that are wise and thoughtful. And I know how to make connections. So I'm looking forward to making the connections for you in front of the room. One of the things that I've noticed is that we're in a paradoxical industry. There are these paradoxes all around us. And early days, when we were in brainstorms and things like that, I noticed that if someone laughs at an idea, if people giggle about an idea, there's something there. There's something that tickles the imagination. There's possibility there. The same is true with paradoxes. So the thread that I'm going to bring through the whole FEI are these paradoxes that exist all around us. Here's a paradox. We always hurt the one you love. That's something that Father Joe knew. He was intentional. He swore. He stunned me. He did it for a reason. There's a paradox at work. Here's another paradox. The more that we try to innovate, the worse we get at innovation. That's true. It's an absolute truth. We actually wrote a book about this. It was called Brand New, Solving the Innovation Paradox. Here's what happens. The CEO of an organization, or the chief innovation officer, or the chief of strategy says, oh my gosh, the future is about to punch us in the face. We need to be more innovative. We need to change. So let's innovate. And then this happens.
In a large company, somewhere in the world, the current lineup of products and services starts to stagnate. A senior executive, maybe the CEO, maybe somebody in marketing, gets the innovation bug, and they declare that innovation is the source of growth for the future. Eventually, declarations are made, emails are sent, announcements are shared, and a task force or committee is formed. Some companies even hire a chief innovation officer, a CIO, to demonstrate how serious they are. The broader organization is crowdsourced, encouraged to send in their very best ideas to help drive the future of the organization. And a newly created mailbox or cool new intranet site is set up to gather those ideas. There's a buzz of excitement in the halls. Finally, people are being asked for their ideas. Brainstorm sessions are held by cool consultancies with hip glasses and dark clothes. Ideas are shared, and eventually an idea is selected, maybe by the person with the loudest voice or the most political sway, and they lobby for their favorite, and eventually it's fast-tracked into execution. Once it's executed, it dismally fails because either it wasn't a good idea to begin with, it wasn't customer-focused, or it was fast-tracked and pared back along the way. The team, reassembled cautiously and with a bit more care, selects another idea, but this time they vow to test it. Research is gathered and evaluated, and then more research, more time passes. The idea is refined and refined again, pared way back, and then soft launch only to fail again because it has lost its uniqueness, or maybe it's too late to market. Meanwhile, across the organization, thousands who were enthused by innovation are chagrined to see their suggestions disappear into a black hole, and the bad ideas brought to market by the bigwigs totally fail. They start complaining. Eventually, enough complaints build up and the CEO has had enough bad news and he disbands the committee, he shuts down the crowdsourcing site, scraps all the other ideas, all in the name of current results. And then he announces to the executive team that it's time to refocus on what's most important, quarterly profits. Innovation has now become a bad word.
Okay, so I heard people giggling. Unfortunately, this kind of wrote itself. So the innovation paradox is the harder we try to innovate, the worse we get at it. When we wrote this book, we actually did some research. And you don't need to show hands, but just answer this question in your mind. Number one, do you think innovation is key to our strategy? Most companies would say yes. So we asked key executives if that was true or not. Number two, are you missing opportunities to exploit your competition, gaps in the market, etc.? Do you learn from past mistakes, or is there this cycle of, man, this is deja vu. This happened, the same thing happened 3 years ago with the last team, and are we risk averse? So we asked a bunch of executives whether that was true, and we printed the results in this book, brand new. And then thankfully, last year at the end of the year, our friends at Accenture did a study where they asked the exact same questions. And look at the results. 4 years later, after we did that study, on average, there were 20% worse at innovation against those 4 criteria. How is that possible? We know that innovation is so important. So as a treasure hunt for you, I'm going to give you some questions to think about over the next couple days about how this is possible and how to keep it from happening to you. So we did some work. We looked back on the past few hundred innovation assignments that we've done, looking for where companies get stuck. And the question is, where do you get stuck? Maslow, famously, if you remember your Biology 101 class, had the hierarchy of needs. And Maslow said, well, first you have to take care of things like physical needs, then it's safety, and then you can move up to love and self-esteem, and eventually you will be fully actualized. It turns out that in organizations, there's a hierarchy of needs as well. So we have parallel engineered which means to steal, this idea from Maslow. There's this innovation hierarchy of needs. And if you don't check the box from the base of the pyramid on up, you get stuck. More specifically, this is the design thinking process. This is well documented. I'm sure most of you are working in this process. Along the way, there are 4 key places where you can get stuck if you haven't checked that box. So what are those places? Well, you need to move from potential to permission to pipeline to profit. From potential to permission to pipeline to profit. It's fun to say really fast. First, you need to build a case for change. You need to have the people in your organization who can make this a go or no-go, co-create a case for change. They have to believe. Next, you need to build a process, and the process has to be insight-driven, not idea-driven. Insights first, ideas second. I will argue with anyone here that if your organization is great at coming up with insights, better than your competition, you will win every time, every time. And then you have a pipeline, a portfolio model that treats different innovation differently. All innovation is not created equally, so you need a portfolio to do that. And finally, you need to be measuring different things besides just profit. Move from ROI to JOI, justification of innovation. So the question is, what are you measuring and when? So these are the questions. If I could go back in time and come to front end of innovation for the first time ever, as a young entrepreneur that was just starting an innovation consulting firm 26 years ago, these are the questions that I would have gone looking for the answer for. So if you can, as you listen to each one of the speakers that comes up here, think about, is leadership behind this, really? Do you have a budget? If you don't have a budget, leadership is not behind it. So what do you do about that? Are we about ideas or insights? Do people get more excited about coming up with a big aha insight or the big aha idea? Ideas are dangerous. Insights are power. Is all innovation created equally? Do people know how to talk about evolutionary versus revolutionary innovation? Do you have a portfolio model? And finally, what, when, and how are you measuring success? So when you can answer those questions, and here's the good news, the speakers that you're going to see over the next couple days are going to provide answers to these questions. If you walk away from this conference with the answers to this question, you will win. So that would be my goal if I could go back in time. So here's another paradox. We need to act more like entrepreneurs, but those people are crazy. This is something you hear all the time. Why aren't we more entrepreneurial? That's a good question. So you heard a story about Father Joe in grade school. Here's a little story from high school.
He's just sitting there.
He's so 40 feet in the air. From a giant slide. Oh, man. That was way hard.
Yeah, stay there, friends.
No.
Roxy.
You're in danger.
I'm going to jump over Roxy.
What happened?
Oh, Nick went down the top there.
Oh.
Yeah.
Back.
Damn it. Are you recording, John?
Yeah.
Alright, go for it.
Lay down nice and flat. Yeah, I'm recording. Lay down nice and flat. Perfect.
Close your eyes, girl. Look inside, girl. Let the sun take you.
Okay, so that is the best metaphor that I found to describe what it feels like for your team to go through the innovation process. It's about coming up with an insight, coming up with a prototype, testing, sliding down and making a splash in the market. And those people, some of them are really excited, some of them are scared witless, all of them are hoping that you tested the slide, that you did your homework, that when you went to the front end of Innovation Conference, you had those questions answered so that they will keep their job, make a dent in the marketplace. So what are the lessons of that? Well, first of all, have fun. This is going to be a lot of fun. There are some amazing speakers, some great stories. The best innovators in the world have a lot of fun. We'll talk about more about that later. And then finally, parallel engineer. Parallel engineer is the politically correct way of saying stealing ideas. And as an entrepreneur, I can tell you that entrepreneurs are, if they're not good at anything else, they're good at learning from other people's mistakes. If they see a system or a process that works, they will steal it. They will say, that's mine, I want to use it. And to start the stealing, I mentioned the 4 ways that you get stuck. We have a white paper. We have parallel engineered ideas from other companies of the best practices of each one of those stucks. So when we've put it in on, you can go analog with paper. We have it on a thumb drive as well. So come by and get that if you'd like it.